Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf. It's almost July, it's the 27th of June today, so it's time for my July TBR. And for those of you who might be new to my channel, hello, welcome, glad you could join us. TBR for the purpose of this video always means to be released. So at the end of each month I look at the forthcoming month and I look at the new releases and then I pick a couple that I personally find interesting and I talk to you about them. And we start off with literary fiction and a debut novel at that. As you know, I'm always trying to find at least one debut for each month for the new releases. And this one is R.O. Kwon, The Incendiaries, which will come out at the end of the month, although the Kindle edition will be released on the 5th of July already. Reese Kwon, or R.O. Kwon, as she calls herself, was born in South Korea, but she has lived in the United States for most of her life. She teaches writing in San Francisco, and she has published her writing in various journals, and her first novel is set in the present day, centering around a Korean-American woman, Phoebe Lin, who at university gets drawn into a religious extremist cult founded by a former student of the university involving North Korea. And then there's a bombing and Phoebe has to flee and her boyfriend Will is looking for her. That's mainly all I know. This novel has gotten a lot of buzz, which is not always good, I know, because then you go into it with too high of expectations, especially for a debut novel. But I'm interested in debuts. I thought the premise of the book and the plot sounded really fascinating. You know, immigration issue, but also terrorism, extremist group, and certainly involving Korea is, you know, very topical at the moment. So I thought this one sounded interesting, and that's why it made my list. The next one, we stay with literary fiction, but the next one is a novel that I am highly anticipatory. Is that a word? I was really looking forward to it. It will be published on the 10th of July, and that's Ottessa Moshfegh's new book, My Year of Rest and Relaxation. You know, if you're following me, that I really loved her previous book, Eileen, which was published in 2015, was on the Man Booker long list. I loved the writing, but I also loved this dark, very not sympathetic character, Eileen. So I ever since then, I was looking forward to her new book, and now it will come out in July. From what I understand, the Year of Rest and Relaxation centers around a young woman in the year 2000 in New York. She is rich, she has an inheritance, she works an easy job in a hip gallery, but there is, of course, because it's Ottessa Moshfegh, a dark side to it. Some mental health issues, very complicated relationship with her best friend Reva, and I'm sure it will be dark and brilliant. So if you, like me, really enjoyed Eileen, then I'm also sure that you will be looking forward to Ottessa Moshfegh's new novel. And the third and last in the category literary fiction is Beatrice Williams' The Summer Wives, which will come out in the summer on the 10th of July. I came across this book first on Steve Donohue's channel, he raved about it, and it sounded like the perfect summer read. Beatrice Williams is a very prolific and well-known author, fiction and historical fiction, and she just knows what she's doing. At least that's what I gather from her previous books. The Summer Wives is set in 1951 in a rich island, Long Island, and we follow Miranda just out of school, and there's a murder, and then Miranda returns after 18 or 17 years or something to the island. The murderer, Joseph, or the one who was convicted for the murder, escaped prison, and then the secrets of the island begin to unravel. What more do you need for a summer read by an author who is just always, you know, coming through with her books? So Summer Wives is my most anticipated summer read. Then we move on to nonfiction, and my first pick in this category is Francine Pro's What to Read and Why, which will also be published in the middle of July. Now, Francine Prose is an American writer. She lives in Brooklyn. I love most of her novels. She's written over 20. Blue Angel is one of my favorites, but I also really like her nonfiction about books and writing. She published a book a couple of years ago, Reading Like a Writer, where she analyzes reading, and yeah, it's a fascinating book. I return to that every once in a while, you know, in order to relish again in Francine Prose's analysis of reading. And now she comes out, long introduction, she comes out with another book about books, in which it's a collection of essays. Some of them have been published earlier in a New York Review of Books, for instance, and it's her take on very well-known classic writers, but also modern writers. And I don't need to know, I seem to say that a lot in this video, but anyway, I don't need to know much more than that it's Francine Prose, that it's a book about books, about writers. Yeah, I want to read it. And I have a second pick in the category nonfiction, and that is Jello Girls by Ali Rowbottom. Coming out at the end of next month, end of July. Now, normally you might know this, if you're watching my videos for some time, I'm not normally reading books with girl in the title. I'm so fed up with books with girl in the title. But this one, I'll make an exception. Now, this is about Jello. I thought this was fascinating. Allie's family, her great uncle, if I remember correctly, bought the patent to Jello in the 1849 or something, and he built an empire on it. And it's such, for me as a European, Jello is such an American thing. I mean, we don't eat it here. You can't even get it here. At least I don't know of any store where you can buy Jello. So that was fascinating for me right from the start. But from the blurb and from what I read about the book, it's not only a family history, but it's also a history of certain, what they call the Jello curse in the family, as illnesses that occur, especially cancer in the women of the family. So it's focusing a family history of the Jello empire, but focusing on the women with a sort of, yeah, dark twist into family diseases. And I thought that sounded so utterly fascinating that I'm willing to overlook the girl in the title. So that's Jello Girls by Ali Rowbottom. And we end the July TBR, as we always do in almost every month, with sci-fi, of course. And this one I'm really looking forward, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's a good one. And that is Becky Chambers' The Record of a Spaceborn Few. And it's the third one, and I think final one, in her Wayfarer trilogy. And I just love the first two books. If you read science fiction, I'm sure you've read them or at least heard about them. The first one, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and the second one, Closed and Common Orbit. Yeah, it's you know, the space opera universe. It's set in the future of, yes, but it's mainly, what mainly makes it so attractive is the diversity of characters and aliens and non-human aliens and different species and the way of storytelling. I loved, like I said, I loved those two books. If you haven't read them, this is not a trilogy in the sense that one book builds on the first one and follows one storyline. You had that with Close and Common Orbit. It was a different story. It took one or two characters that we were familiar with from the first book, Angry Planet, and then told their story. So it's not a sequel in that sense. And as I understood, the third one is no different. So it takes off at the moment that the first one, Angry Planet, ends, but it has a new set of characters, but with some relation to the characters we know from the first book. This one, Spaceborn Few, centers around the Exodus space fleet, which was built in order to evacuate humanity from the dying Earth planet into the universe, to spread humanity into the universe. Whether that was a good idea or not is a different topic. And now we are centuries later, and we follow a couple of characters, all connected to the Exodus fleet and their destiny. I loved the writing in the first 2 books, and I loved the universe, the world building, and like I said, all those diverse non-human creatures. So I'm really looking forward to the 3rd one in the trilogy, and I think it's the last one, because it's called the trilogy, not for nothing. But I'm sure that Becky Chambers will go on writing sci-fi after this. Anyway, these were my picks for the July TBR. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know down in the comments, as always, whether any of the books that I mentioned interest you, whether you're planning on reading them, or whether there are any new releases in the summer in July that you are especially excited about and you want to tell me. And I'll see you all soon in my next video. Bye-bye.